Hey, it's Charlie Ray. Welcome back to my channel. It's finally that time of year again for Granny Janny. So I have created this particular bag in granny squares. I do have some strips on the top, but we'll get to that later. I actually had to work pretty hard this year to get the find time to squeeze in making the squares. So I did do some in cars. I did do some just at different random times when I was waiting for other things and stuff like that. But I got in quite a few projects this year, so I'm happy about that. Definitely more than I got in last year. So I sewed all the pieces together for this one. It was a pretty basic rectangle that I was making and then adding some strips on the top. So there wasn't a whole lot to this part, but then I added a lining on the inside, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. For now, I'm just going to let you guys see the project I was working on. So I'm feeling good about how it's coming out so far at this point, and it's about time for me to go ahead and work on the lining before I add the top. Okay, so I am working on finishing this pouch today. I did the rest of it another day, as you saw previously. So what I'm going to do now is choose between this green fabric or this pink fabric to go inside. I really don't, I like the contrast of the green, but I also like the lightness of the pink. So I really don't know which one, you guys. I think I'm going to actually go with the green on this one. First thing I need to do is take some measurements to see how much fabric I need so I can make something that fits inside of here. Okay, so spoiler alert. This whole measurement thing did not work out, not because the measurements or the math was incorrect, but because I got a little impatient and lazy about it, and I just did not feel like properly doing it or getting out the proper tools to do it correctly. So I just ended up like kind of somewhat marking it and cutting it by the measurements that I took, but it was very loosely based. So the lining ended up coming out a little bit loose, but it still was close enough that it wasn't a big deal. Yeah, so like I was saying before, I didn't really do things how I was supposed to. So this little strip here, I thought, oh, that's probably enough space to do the ends. So I kind of just like cut it off and stuck it on there to make sure that it would be wide enough. But I didn't really do a measurement on this part like at all. So you can see what I mean by me being just impatient and basing it loosely on the measurements on the big square, but then actually on this part I just like didn't do it at all. but it still fit in there. And as long as the sides were covered by the other piece of fabric, I didn't worry about it too much. So now all I need to do is sew the squares for the side onto the main body. So I picked out some green thread, which I just so happen to have like a darker green thread. I really do need to add some more colors to my thread bottle or jar here, as that's all the colors that I have. So if it doesn't work with one of these, then it's just not gonna work. So I really do need to add to that. But anyway, I wanted to try to center at least the fabric in the middle. So I just kind of measured how wide it was and took the center third and made some markings going down so that I would know on each edge where I'm putting that square or sewing that square, so that I would be able to see where it was when wherever I am. I decided to go ahead and iron a little bit of a hem, which did not work out because it was too small for the amount of fabric, but also to iron it into the thirds so I can see the line all the way across of where that middle third was. So once that was done and about even, I took a little piece that I had left over and decided to make a pocket on the inside with that. So I sewed a little hem and I ironed a little hem and I clipped the corners so that I could sew it on properly to the middle of the inside. Made sure my needles my hooks were gonna fit in there. And then I went ahead and sewed the ends. In retrospect, I should have sewn the pocket on first. That would have been easier. But I sewed the two squares on the ends first. But it wasn't too much of a big deal. But just if you were going to do a project like this, logistically, that would have been the simpler way to go. Once I got to the pocket, I tried to sew the stitch. I don't know what this stitch is called, but it's just so that it won't really show on the outside, and I am not a seamstress by any means, so I did my best to make the stitch. But at this point the pocket and the sides were done, and it was time to sew the lining to the inside of the bag. So my plan for sewing this to the bag was, the lining to the bag, was to just fold the lining over where it meets the top part of the bag, and then just to sew it right to the inside stitch of the bag so that I could still do the seam right when it came time to sew the top part on. So you probably have noticed the needles in the side of the bag. So I was trying to pin it together, but my clips are in a storage unit and I didn't have anything else. So I used a couple of just sewing needles to hold the lining to the bag while I went down the side. And the first part, I was sewing the lining way too close together, and I didn't think about it until later that I was going to have to get my yarn needle through there. So for the rest of it, I started sewing it a little further apart so I could have enough space to squeeze the yarn needle through when it came time to sew the top of the bag on. Also, I didn't bother with weaving in the ends because they would just be inside of the lining, so I just tucked those in as I went along. Okay, so I have finished sewing the lining inside of the bag. It's not perfect, but I'm not looking for perfect. But I do already like this much better than the first one I made. And again, let me put a couple of my crochet needles in here. See how I like that. Boom. So now I just have to make the part that goes on the top, and I'm just going to be doing a strip across on both sides that overlaps, so a very basic open closing type of thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on that. I'll be back. So I didn't really have a plan other than a couple of strips going across the top, But then as I was working on it, I decided I wanted to give a little texture to the white one and a little bit of an edging to the pink one. So I think I actually should have made each one of these slightly wider, but at the time I thought it was wide enough, so that is what I went with. And the plan was just to sew them directly onto the sides and each end and leave it open in the middle. I don't need it to latch or anything like that. It's just to keep a few supplies in. So then I went ahead and sewed those on. Okay, so it is getting pretty late and I'm going to go and get some rest, but this is generally the idea that I had for this. We're going to have this sewn onto here, and this will be sewn on the other side, so it'll look, I'm trying to squeeze it, it'll look something like that. And I've already started like right here, making sure it's gonna come out, but I had a little bit of trouble with this corner because when I first started stitching, I was putting the stitches very close together. So I'm going to try and fix that tomorrow. And I'm also going to obviously finish sewing around here. And I believe that will be it for this bag. It's just a soft bag. I could have put either like some plastic or cardboard or something in here if I wanted it to be more firm. But I want to be able to tuck it in wherever it fits into another bag. So anyway, that's gonna do it for tonight, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Good morning, guys. I got the bag all done. So here's what it looks like inside. I have a little ball of yarn. I have a piece of a project that I am working on. You'll see that in another video. And I have a few supplies, scissors, and a couple of crochet hooks down here. So this bag, I feel like came out much better than my previous bag that I wanted to carry some needles in. I didn't really need this to fit yarn, but it's nice that the project will be able to fit inside, or at least the part that I'm working on. For most of the projects that I'm working on anyway, will be small enough. And so I also like that it's pretty flexible. I can bend it up, fold it up, and it can fit inside of things and squeeze inside of bags if I needed to do that. And this project is done, but I do think that I would like to have a third go on this project. I think I would change making the strips across the top a little bit wider, and maybe even making the sides be a triangle instead of a square. Not sure, but of course, if I do a third round on a little crochet hook case, I will definitely be posting it for you guys. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.